So being devalued by anyone, but that when a narcissist devalues, what is the devalue? So what is it? The devalue is when a person depreciates your value beyond the normal fading of the honeymoon period in a relationship. It's totally normal for things to fade and you just start to see things about a person, or they see things about you that make it so that you're not this perfect being that you seem to be in the beginning, or they seem to be in the beginning. But what a narcissist does is they take your value way down beneath what is healthy and normal in a relationship. They spend their beginning of the relationships usually grooming and love bombing you, right? Not always, but generally speaking, they love bomb you, they idealize you, they put you on a pedestal, they make you feel like they are going to give you the world, they future fake, they make it seem like you're the best thing that's ever happened in their life, you're the most amazing person, all this stuff, right? And then they knock you off that pedestal. They it's basically when they're in the love bombing stage of relating to someone, they are creating the delusion, they're creating the role you're going to play in their delusion. They're setting it up so that this is the standard by which they will expect you to be at in their eyes, not who you really are as a person, right? And then they will devalue you for many reasons, and we'll talk about the why later on, and knock you off that pedestal. And they bring you, not only do they then see you as a human, like, oh, so you're not perfect, they name call, they blame shift. We'll talk about that too. So they knock you down, they take you down, they start making you feel terrible about yourself, right? So we'll talk about why. Why does a narcissist devalue? If everything's great and they're getting supply and everything's wonderful, like if you could just stay in the honeymoon period with anyone, wouldn't it be wonderful? Of course. And I'm talking about any relationship or job or anything, when the beginning of anything can feel really ideal, right? That's not what happens. So what happens is they create a false idealization. The thing is, a narcissist in the beginning is wearing a mask. You're not seeing their true self. You're not seeing their good side. You think you are. You think, if only I could get back to the beginning before they devalued me, right? But you're not. You didn't actually see their good side. What you saw is the mask they put on that they were wearing in order for you to believe that's who they are. They figure out your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, your needs, your wants pretty quickly. And they become that thing in order for you to attach to them. Once you're attached, they can begin the cat and mouse. They can begin the love bomb devalue. They can begin the intermittent reinforcement and all the stuff that happens later on. And so why? Someone's asking why. Let's talk about the why. Okay, so there's several things. I'm going to just kind of read. I wrote stuff. I'm going to read a little and then talk. So basically, it's all about power, right? We know this, that a narcissist needs control, power. They need to feel like what they believe is true is true. They are living in a delusional world based on their own ego. Okay, so they create the world around them by idealizing people, and then when you don't meet that, and that doesn't mean you're not enough. It doesn't mean you're not doing good enough or you're not trying hard enough. What it means is you're a human being that isn't a fake, artificial, delusional human that they've created. The second you do something different than that, bam, you are knocked off the pedestal. You aren't behaving the way they need you to behave. All right. So that's one reason. Another reason is they can't maintain the mask that they are wearing. And so let's compare it to a healthy, normal relationship, healthy, non-toxic relationship. Let's call it that. So if you're with someone and you're happy and everything's wonderful and it's very honeymoon, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then suddenly you start seeing little irritating things that they're doing, or they start seeing irritating things that you're doing. We'll just say you see them for now. Okay. So you see them doing things like maybe they don't call you before when they're going to be late, or maybe they don't text you during the day, or something that irritates you that you're like, hey, I'd like more of that in the relationship. So you say something to them. You say, hey, in the beginning, you used to text me all the time, and now you're not texting me very much. What's up? Right? You say it kind of nicely. You don't yell at them because this is the first time you're talking about it, right? And in a healthy relationship, that becomes a point of discussion. That becomes a, well, things we're comfortable with each other. We're this, we're that. I guess I didn't see the need. If that's what you need, I'll try it. Or they say, you know what, my life's really good. They have reasons. They have things. You talk about it. And in a relationship with a toxic person, they take that as a threat when you say anything that relates to something they're doing wrong. So, or wrong. By wrong, I mean, it could even be not even wrong, but just something you'd like changed, or something you're seeing you're not happy with in the relationship. They take that as a threat. They take it as a sign of you trying to take control, and they snap the control back by devaluing you. Does that make sense? So that's another reason that they devalue. It's all about maintaining power and control, and maintaining the delusion, maintaining they are perfect, they are wonderful, they are amazing, whatever they're presenting themselves as. You know how they can't, they'll have this, some of them will have this delusional world where they have the perfect happy family, and behind the scenes all the stuff goes on, and everyone in the world, no one believes it because they think, but he or she is so amazing. And what are you talking about? All this stuff goes on when no one's looking. It's like that. So that's what they're doing, but within the relationship. So you're supposed to see them as perfect. The second you don't, they attack and they knock you down because they need you beneath them. And it's like, well, but you do this thing, but you do this thing. That starts happening. Their pattern of how they communicate during conflict, not even conflict, just how they communicate. When there's anything other than supporting that they are wonderful, they're amazing, the way they communicate within that is very immature and very toxic, right? We know this. So they can't relate any other way. They knock you down in order to not have to accept and cope and deal with the thing they need to change. And I'm going to have people walking here in a second, I think. Here they come. Okay. Anyway, so another thing can be another reason they devalue, and I don't hear this talked about too much, but I've seen it and I've experienced it, is when you are doing nothing but feed the supply. You're being everything you can because you think, oh, this is great. This is an ideal relationship. This person's wonderful, and so you're doing all the stuff. You're being either overly codependent with them, or you're being overly giving. Or you're just happy and you're giving toward this relationship, right? And you're in a really good place, you think. That doesn't give them anywhere to go except down, right? That means they also have to maintain this happy, wonderful place. And we know that a narcissist can't do that. They're not happy people. So there's no power there. There's no control. That's equality. If two people are happy, that's an equal relationship. If two people are satisfied, there's equality. They can't have that. So in order to tip the balance, in order for them to feel powerful, they'll start pulling you under. They hurt the things that are nicest to them, right? They will pull you under by devaluing you. Okay. So hello to everyone as well. When do they do it? When does this happen in a relationship with a narcissist or toxic person? Pretty much it can happen anytime. It can literally happen anytime. There isn't really a formula for it that I know of. It can happen when things are going great. It can happen when things are not going great. It can happen if you're arguing. It can happen if you're complying. It can happen if you turn a blind eye to things. It just starts to happen. It happens in the narcissist's own time as they are as people, right? So it literally can happen whenever. What did I say here? Pretty much what I talked about, the why. It's pretty much corresponds with what I talked about with the why. It can happen when they're feeling threatened. It can happen when they're feeling bored. It can happen when they're getting their way. It doesn't really matter. It just happens. It's part of how you're not in a healthy relationship. It's not the ending of the honeymoon phase. And we'll talk about that at the end. what it looks like in a healthy relationship, the difference. Okay. So it is not that. It is devaluing. And let's talk about how they devalue, what it looks like, what it makes you feel like. Devaluing is all the stuff we know of that we call hurtful, toxic, and abusive. Okay. It's all of the stuff that we talk about when we're talking about who cares if someone's egotistical? Who cares if someone needs their way? Who cares if they're emotionally immature? Who cares if all the things, like, really, who cares? Except for the fact that they're hurting other people. They're hurting you, and that they are not being fair in relationships. They're not being healthy in relationships, and they're actually being damaging and creating a whole heck of a lot of damage to survivors of their mess. It's years of healing from dealing with one person that is this way. So that's why it matters. And so what happens is they start doing all the toxic things. They will start gaslighting. They will start projecting. They will start name calling. They will take a victim stance in a debate or an argument or a discussion. Usually things don't start out an argument. They start out because we're already sort of walking on eggshells because we feel it coming. Because what can happen to begin with is a subtle and sort of covert, not always, but sometimes a subtle, covert, sort of slow things like ignoring you, not responding to texts, not responding to calls, not looking happy to see you, things that just feel like they're dissatisfied. So it can start out with a sort of dissatisfaction. In fact, I had one tell me once, he said, keep up how you behave. The way you behave, I like the way you behave. I'm like, the way I behave? I'm thinking he must not have meant behave. You know how you just, like, you're already trauma bonded for some reason, you're already like hooked in, and you hear these words and you just kind of go, he must have meant how I act, and he's just using a funny word or whatever. Anyway, he says, I like the way you are. He says, with everyone else, it's sort of like I was dissatisfied really quickly. You don't make me feel dissatisfied. So keep this up and I'll never feel dissatisfied with you. And I kind of laughed it off because it was said in like this passing conversation, and then he laughed about it like, ha ha ha, and I thought, and now that I think about it, it's super creepy. But at the time it didn't seem creepy. If you've been there, you know what I mean, right? So anyway, that's the beginning of the devalue. That's telling you that this is how they act. That's someone who knows exactly how they act and is just waiting for it to happen, is setting you up to, you better behave or else you're going down, girl or man, whatever, right? So it can be a really subtle and covert in the beginning. They basically, it feels like they don't like you. It feels like that in the beginning. Sometimes it just starts with all out, like you have one argument and that's it. It's over. They start devaluing you. But often it can be this slow thing. So you don't know it's coming. So you don't know how to respond to it. And yet again, you're being groomed into accepting a behavior that is toxic for you. You're being groomed into it through a slow process of, they sort of test the waters. And as they test the waters, it gets worse and worse and worse as they go on, right? So things like they can seem shut down. You basically don't feel like you're being seen or noticed. That kind of like ignored, noticed, or it can be attacks, name calling, totally putting you down, shaming, blaming. A lot of female narcissists will do the shame and blame, emasculating if they're with a man, or telling you're jealous and inconsiderate and hurting their feelings if it's same sex. Often I hear people tell me that, and there's just ways that they do it. What did you say? You feel a slight feeling of hate. Yes, you do, but you can't put your finger on it often. You can't quite put your finger on it in the beginning. Later on, you know it's happening, and you're like, oh, they're doing the thing again. They're not being this, they're not being that. Well, it's not that they're literally doing this to you. They are creating the drama and the situation out of nowhere, out of nothing, out of their own need to be in control of the relationship from a very negative and toxic place. Okay. And yes, you do feel invisible. Like, oh, you feel an invisible wall that they have up. Absolutely. So things like put downs, intermittent lack of emotional intimacy. We know what that's like, right? Give a little tiny takeaway, stonewall, silent treatment, shut down. All of that starts happening. It can be moments of silent treatment, or it can be days of silent treatment, weeks even. They start disappearing on you. They just take off. You don't know where they are. They don't call you. They don't respond to your texts. They don't respond to your calls. They withdraw affection. They withdraw or have a lack of physical intimacy intermittently. So a lot of it is intermittent, because remember, this goes in cycle with the love bombing. So they're going to throw in the little breadcrumbs in order to keep you on the hook, and then they're going to devalue you with these tactics. Okay. They blame you for their issues. That is a major projecting. You're cheating. You're lying. Where were you? All of that stuff. They start blaming you for the things they're actually doing, or plan to do, or would do, or could do. All right. They gaslight you. They twist your words. It's this endless list of all the stuff we know they do that is hurtful. All the videos that we make about all this stuff, right? So remember that when you're going through this and you're going, I just want the good back. I just want the good back. I want the beginning back. I want it. This is what we do in the cycle. What from the survivor standpoint, what we do in the relationship is we try to recreate the beginning. We're trying desperately to get back there. So basically, they build up a beginning that is, it's future faking. Love bombing in the very beginning is grooming and future faking. All right, they're faking what they're saying could be this potential. So we, as people who maintain relationships, try to give to the relationship, try to help the relationship, go through every self-help book we can find to figure out what's wrong with us in order to fix the relationship. We see this potential because we know it's there. We've seen them give. We've heard the words they say. We know they know how to be affectionate, kind, loving, blah, 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 or appear that way. And then the devalue happens, and we are spending our entire time in a relationship trying to build it back up toward that place, right? So then you spend years and years and years trying to fix it, trying to get better. It never was the truth. That was a mask that they wore in order to hook you, because they know they're terrible. They know that they can't maintain relationships. Most of them will say it. They'll say to you, I'm no good in relationship. I'm no good. They'll say little hints throughout the beginning, and you'll be like, oh no, you've just been with people that don't understand you or whatever. Right. So it never was the truth. So if you're trying to get back there to the beginning, there was no truth in the beginning. Your truth in the beginning was, of course, you were falling in love with someone. But the truth of them was not there. That was a mask they were wearing to keep you there. And yes, of course. And I always say this, you can have a good time with pretty much anyone for a short period of time. It's how people maintain things throughout time that shows their nature, their true character, and whether or not they're worth being in your life. So if you're going through this devalue, don't try to fix it. See it for what it is. This is what it is. It is a pattern. It's a pattern enough to talk about it, right? It happens to enough people through enough toxic relationships that we can actually give it a name. So get out, get away from it. This is not going to get better. It is not your fault, and you don't need to try and fix it. You just need to see it for what it is, that no matter what you do, these people are going to hook you in and knock you down over and over and over again. That's the cycle, okay? Let's talk very shortly. I have to go quickly here because I have a group coming up in a few minutes, so coaching group. So I'm going to finish up with, I'm going to read your questions too, but I'm going to finish up with what it looks like in a healthy relationship for the honeymoon period to end. And brief. We can talk about that for a long time, but basically in a honeymoon period, if you want to call it that, in the beginning of relationships, when you're in that new relationship energy thing, everything feels like, this is why it's confusing. Everything feels like the love bombing, right? You're fully in, your brain is disconnected, and all you're thinking about is that other person. They're doing the same to you. You're in that same space that the beginning of it is like with a narcissist, that place we're trying to get back to. In a healthy relationship, that fades, okay? Because you cannot stay there forever, because that is not the reality of being with another person, with another human being of any kind. I mean, even when you're with children, you start to see their little quirks, their little flaws, where they need to work, and you don't devalue them. Instead, you teach, right? So, or you be with them and you understand them. So when you're in a healthy relationship, there's understanding. There's understanding as things fade and you start to fight and things aren't as butterflies and happiness and all of that. You start to feel more bored. You start to feel like that feeling of, oh, I don't really like them today. They don't really like me today. All of that stuff that goes on, right? The difference is, in a healthy relationship, when you communicate about it, there's understanding, there's respect. There's none of the stuff that I'm talking about goes on to an extreme. Everybody does a little piece of these things once in a while to another person. I'm talking about patterns, okay? So you are creating depth when you're with someone healthy. When you're with a narcissist, there is no depth. You're the only one with the depth, right? Because they can't have it. They can't have real intimacy. They can't have real connection or closeness. So when you're in a healthy relationships, you're seeing truths about the other person, and they're seeing the truths about you, and you are learning to accept and work with those truths instead of devalue those truths. And you are it's a relaxed attachment that starts to happen, where you start to trust one another. Trust is built, not knocked down. So somebody put here, it should be a level out. Exactly, like a leveling out of that, woo, really excited, into a safe and comfortable relationship instead of an unsafe and very uncomfortable relationship like you have with a toxic person. So I'm going to read what you guys said here. Hi to everyone. And dismissal of my feelings for something terrible happening, which they did. This is not devalue, it's dismissal. But will you reply to this one? Dismissal is part of the devaluing. Okay, so through dismissing you, they are devaluing you. They're saying your value isn't worth my time, and I'm just going to dismiss you, right? Does that make sense? So it's the same category, and it's part of the devaluing. So dismissal, that's another good one. Dismissal is a big one. She's very good at hiding it and making everything seem like it's my fault. That's what I was saying earlier about the female narcissist, right? Yeah, nothing is wrong at all, and I feel like I need proof and more justification for wanting to. Yeah, that's how it feels, and I think you're experiencing exactly what we're talking about here then, right? Let's see if there's any other questions. If you have a question and I missed it, just retype it, please. I'm going to look back real quickly. I have my laptop in a weird spot. When we had a breakup, he felt entitled that I should still allow him to hold my car and was mad, right? Yeah, okay. No more questions here. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell with the devaluing. And if you're going through it, I'm sorry. It is not fun. It is not a pleasant place to be. And but it is the cycle, and it is the pattern, and it's something to watch for. So if you are in the beginning phases of a relationship right now, and you are wondering if something's going on, and you're looking for red flags, and you have just nodded your head to a bunch of these things, you're seeing red flags. So start to consider and start to think what you want for your life, right? And get yourself in a healthy situation, please. So that's it. I will be back later and talk to you guys soon. You guys take care. Bye-bye.